everyone, it's Kerry back with you today. I've recently been making a lot of these little collages and I've been sharing them on Facebook, and I've had several of you ask for a tutorial on how I've created them. So I'm going to show you today how I've made mine. These projects are great for using up lots of your paper scraps. So if you've got, scrapbook paper, book pages, washi tape is another thing that I like to use on these. And then you need a focal point. So on this one, I've used a sticker, for example. This one here, I've actually used one of the Tim Holtz transparent wings and just a little paper bead. This one's just a fussy cut image out of a flower fairy book. But you can use, anything that you've got to hand. This one was actually just a washi tape that I've just cut out a piece from the actual washi tape. So you can use anything as your focal point. I will leave links in the description box below to some of the items that I have available in the shop, but use what you've got. You don't need to have anything special for this project. So let's get started. Before we begin with the project, I just wanted to share with you a little tip that I look for when I'm picking up books from secondhand shops and things like that. But I like to have a flick through the book and see if I can find books that have different fonts in them and fonts in different sizes. I find those give a lot of interest, especially if you're doing something like collage, and you can cut or tear small pieces out and use them to give you variation in your projects. So that's just something that I look for when I'm picking out things from the secondhand shop. So to begin with my collage, I've just got a piece of plain paper here. This is a recycled paper, so it's got a little bit of different coloured flecks in the paper. And this was an A4 sheet that I've just folded and torn to give me a rough edge. Now the two edges that were straight I've just distressed using my paper distresser. If you don't have a paper distresser, you can just use a pair of scissors and just run it along the edge of the card, and that will give you that distressed look along the edge. So I've also got here a small tray of paper scraps and some washi tapes and things like that. When I'm selecting the papers that I want to collage onto my background, I want to cover up no more than about a third of this side of my paper. So I might choose something like that. And I like the fact that it's a different colour to the background. It just gives a little bit of variation. So I'm just going to use a glue stick to glue this piece down. So once I've glued that down, I want to add something else just for a little bit more interest. And I'd actually pick this piece of book page. That down as well. Okay, now when I look at this, these two pieces of text are standing out quite heavily from the background. So I'm just going to use a little bit of gesso, and I just get a little bit on my finger, and I'm just going to run it over the text area, and it just sort of numbs it a little bit, dulls it down so it's not quite so bright. And then I'm also going to run a little bit of the gesso along the edge of the paper, just so that it's a bit more varied, it's not so solid looking. I'm going to decide which focal point I'm going to use on here. So I've got a few different ones here. I've got a little mushroom from a notebook, so I could use that there. A couple of different plant stickers, they would work. And then I've got these dragonfly stickers, and one of those would work as well. But I think for this one, I'm going to use one of these plants. So I'm going to use a colour similar to this green to give me a little bit of background stamping. So I've got some bundled sage here, and this is just a text stamp that I have used to death. And I'm just going to add a little bit of stamping to my background. So I'm just going to stamp it off first because I want it to be subtle in the background. I don't want it to be too bright. I want everything to be in the background. And then I'll just stamp that in a couple of different places. So it just sort of adds a little bit of interest to the background without, standing out from the background. So once I've done that, it's just a matter of sticking down my focal point. And then I like to add some gold splashes. Now to make my gold splashes I use the Lindy's Magical Shaker, and I've got this in the glittering gold colour, which will give me that nice bright gold. Now I've actually got a little paint palette here, and I'll show you how you mix this up. It's really simple. So there's a little pour spout on the shaker, and I just pour a little bit of the powder into one of the trays, onto the palette, and then you just add a little bit of water. Now if the water evaporates and these dry up, like I've got in here, you can reactivate them by just adding the water again, so you're not wasting anything, which is really good. And then once I've added the water, I just give it a good mix. Now sometimes I like to have my gold really thick and bright, so you would just add a little bit more powder, or if you want the gold to just be subtle, then you can mix it with more water. There's no right or wrong amount to mix. So once I've mixed it, I just flick a few droplets onto my background. And then I just set it aside to dry, but for the sake of the video I'll just give that a quick blast with my heat gun. Once that's nice and dry, it's got a really pretty gold sheen on it there. I hope that camera's picking that up. And sometimes I like to add a secondary colour just to give it a little bit more variation. So over to the side here I do have another palette that's got some other colours mixed in. It's a little bit disgraceful, but it works for me. So I would do the same thing. I would just add a couple of flicks of a different colour. There we go. I have that second colour there, which has also got some of the gold in, but it's not quite as bright. So once I'm at this point, I then just want to finish it off with either some stamping that's a little bit more bold. So I've got some black archival ink here. Add a little stamp like that, and then side over here some numbers, or the letters I think. Yep. So the background is still very muted, and then you've just got a focal point and then a couple of other little areas that sort of pop up off the background. So I'll just make up these other two, and I'll pop the camera on fast forward just so you can see how quick and easy they really are to be made. that's how I've created these little collages. I really like them for using up scraps and things like that. And once you've created them, you could cut them into tag shape if you wanted to have them a tag. You could just use them as a page in your journal, or you could add them to another um, cover or something like that, maybe with a little bit of lace or something, and then you've got a little book cover there. Anyway, I hope that's given you some inspiration. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time. Bye.